And we are live. I want to welcome everyone to LangTalent 2024 from the multilingual team, myself, Camila, and all of those that have been helping make this event happen. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to give a few minutes to make sure that we are streaming live on different channels where this is going to be available. So to give you a general idea of what's going to be happening and what is happening right now, we are going to be publishing this event and the recordings and everything that you'll see on our landing page, which is multilingual.com/language-talent if you want. But if you just do that, you can find it. We will put in it. It's already around the email threads, around social media. If you are watching this, you've seen our communications and you know why this is happening. Now, there are probably a lot of people in your network that probably could benefit from what's going to be happening today and in the future around this space. So it's a good opportunity to share that link with those that you think could, join us live or just watch the recording later. This is a 2-day event starting today in about 9 minutes, 8 minutes. It's a 2-day event in which we will have 2 keynotes and 2 panels. So on today's schedule, we will have a keynote by Nathalie Greff-Santamaría, who is the head of language services at the Olympic Games. And she's going to be talking about building a career in the global language industry. And we were very particular about adding global in a language industry, as we see so many companies that are still not global, even though they're in the language industry. We'll look to explore the dynamic career paths available in language. She will share her experiences, provide us some guidance and career opportunities from entry-level position to leadership roles. That's the plan. We'll start that in about 8 minutes. And after that keynote, we will have a panel that we've named Essential Skills for Language Professionals in 2025. Mila, if you have some of the images, it'd be great so that we can also see who the panelists are going to be. But on that panel, we'll have Melanie Francis from Global Search, which is a recruiter, Mila Golovine, who is an entrepreneur, CEO of MasterWord, and Max Troyer, who is a professor at the for language professionals. This one is going to be at 7 Los Angeles time, 7 a.m. So it's early for everyone in the Pacific. We are aware. Buenos Aires is noon, and then Berlin time is 4 p.m. So we'll try to do the best we could to make sure everyone could get a chance to see it. So that's what's going to happen today. So Nathalie Greff-Santamaría, the first keynote in about 7 minutes now, building a career in global language industry. And right after that, essential skills for language professionals. And this is the first one. Thank you, Mila. And that's keynote number 1 that we'll have today. Now, as I said, this is a 2-day event. So after today, tomorrow, we will have yet another keynote, which we've named 10 AI-powered language tools for translators and interpreters for 2025. Because 2024 is kind of done, right? So we want to focus on 2025. And that's going to be done by Laszlo Varga. He's going to be talking about essential AI tools. And then part of his team is also going to showcase some solutions designed to enhance productivity, accuracy, and collaboration, helping talent in language who are already using some sort of artificial intelligence or tools to get ahead. And we will also have, and this is a keynote, but of course it's a practical keynote. We will have a panel on fostering well-being. This is the one. Thank you, Mila. That's going to be Laszlo Varga. It's going to be at 6 a.m. for the Pacific time. Maybe it'd be good for those that are in the Pacific to start the day. I think it'd be great. And then fostering well-being. Right after that, we'll do fostering well-being. And or thinking is that remote work is an essential part of most companies in language services. So what we have done is to bring in multidisciplinary and I'd say very impressive lineup of professionals that are going to be with us. There's going to be Sophie Solomon from Accenture. We'll have Nicole Spite James. I hope I didn't destroy your last name, Nikki. From Advantage Translations, very impressive what they are doing these days. James, so Nicole Spite James, Liam Martin, who is with Running Remote, but is also an incredible entrepreneur in the remote ecosystem. If you have not heard about Running Remote, I'm sure Liam will tell us more about it, but it's really incredible what they do for remote workers around the world. And Eva, or Eva Klaudikova. If I call her Eva, she's not gonna like it. So Eva, also from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. So I think we're gonna have an amazing time with these amazing people. We're gonna learn a lot, and I think the possibilities that we have from here is we will do a better job of consolidating what we've called the job source directory, which really is a directory of all of the places. And hello, Adelina from Milan, Italy. So we've done all of them. We want to take all of the companies and organizations that are offering jobs or that have job boards. We'll just put a list. It's just a directory. We have no intentions of getting into the technicalities of it, but we believe that there is a huge conversation around talent. And hello, snowy Finland. Reggio in Colombia, it's pretty cloudy today, still hot. I think we're at 29 degrees Celsius, which I believe is something like 87, 86, something like that. Karachi, Pakistan, fantastic. So we, of course, would love to hear your feedback. We will have more announcements on LangTalent, but you can know that if you're looking for talent, or if you're looking to showcase the culture of your companies, so heads of people from different companies, LangTalent will be launching soon its podcast version, where all of these contents you'll be able to access through our podcast. And then we'll do different demos of companies that want to showcase their culture, and we believe there are many like that. Hello, Ana de Los Angeles, Lopez Jimenez from Lima, Peru. And Niche France, Laure, hello. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. You should all get a multilingual subscription. So I will end with this for those that do not know what multilingual is. Rosario. Multilingual is a physical magazine, but it's also a digital magazine. So we have a website. We have amazing stories. I received this yesterday, so I started looking into it, and check this out. Modern Mayans, a hidden world closer than you think. This is incredible. Look at that. Jeez. It's incredible. It's incredible work. And then this is amazing work that we are not doing. These people are doing. It's Jace Northern. He is the CEO. Maybe we'll bring him to talk about what they do. Maybe they are looking for talent and you want to work for them. Or maybe you are a company looking for talent. And Pura, Peru, Gabriel, hello. We are 1 minute away from starting, and I wouldn't be more or happier, rather, to welcome our next guest. And it's so incredible to have so many people from different parts of the world. Argentina, Berlin. This is amazing. Oh, and now I can see all the comments. Incredible. Oh, wow. Thank you so much, everyone. If there are any suggestions you have, just let them. For us, this is Nigeria, Norway, Germany, Portugal, Barcelona. Oh my Lord, Zagreb, I've been there. It's amazing. Strukli is my favorite food in the world, and it's from Croatia. Strukli. I haven't been able to find what do you call it? Recipe to make it at home here in Colombia. But our next guest, and I will say hello to everyone with Nathalie, so that we get to introduce ourselves, or that she gets to introduce herself. Riyadh, I just came from there. I love Saudi Arabia. Salam alaikum. Spain, New Zealand, kia ora. Oh, I know many things in Maori. I know a song, but we won't get to that today. Mila, give me a signal. Is Nathalie with us? I am overly excited by seeing everyone. Cold London, Michael Hughes. Laura, Romania. Madrid, Spain. Eugenia. Lima, Peru. Again. Christian from Ghana, from the Association of Language Companies in Africa. Great work, Alka. Great work. Great work. We needed it more, and there's an announcement from them. I really hope we get to see a magazine out of Africa. This would be incredible. Lisboa, Portugal. I've been to Lisboa too. Beautiful. It's the most Latin American city in Europe. All continents except Antarctica. All continents. We should find. Perfect. Perfect. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to Nathalie Greff-Santamaría. Nathalie Greff has been involved in the language industry for many years. Today, if I could list what we can see on LinkedIn, right? She's been at Kudo, she's been at AATI in Argentina, and she's been working more recently as the head of language services at the Olympic Games. Would love Nathalie to introduce herself and to tell us more about her before.
Hi, Eddie. How are you?
Hello, I am doing great. Thank you so much for joining us today, for
Thank
being
you for the
here.
invitation.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure. And as you see, we have people from all around the world that are connected through different channels. And, we were mentioning to everyone that this is a really great opportunity to get to know about you, to get to know about your career and all the advice that you can give us. For those that just joined us, I just want to remind you that we are going to be hearing from Nathalie about building a career in the global language industry. We'll explore the dynamic career pathways available in the global language industry. She will share her experiences and provide guidance on navigating career opportunities from entry-level position to leadership roles. I'm very excited to hear about your experiences, Nathalie. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Eddie, and I'm very grateful for this invitation. So let me start with the good morning or good afternoon, good evening. Of course, maybe depending on where you are, and I've been watching the chat as well and following all these different places you're connecting from. So it's a pleasure to be here. And as Eddie said, my name is Nathalie Greff-Santamaría. I am a literary translator, conference interpreter, and project manager. And it's an absolute privilege to open this, much anticipated, at least for me, and much needed today event alongside Eddie and Camila as well. Over the next few days, we'll all explore not only how to refine our professional skills, but also how to prioritize self-care, for example, a crucial yet often overlooked part of our careers. But before diving in, I'd like to take a moment to really thank you again, Eddie and Camila, for trusting me with this keynote. I will share my experience, of course, but it's mostly about you and maybe what you can extract from this experience to support you in your career, or maybe if you want change and I don't know, move from translating to interpreting or the other way around, or any other linguist careers that you would like to dive into, I'd be happy to at least share my experience in hopes that it can help you. I'm personally eager to learn from all the different experts that we will listen to over these 2 days. And by the way, Adi, I was the head of Paris 2024 Language Services as my role ended in September 30th because, well, the games reached an end. So I am now back freelancing and trying to apply everything that I'm going to go over for the next hour. And it was actually great to prepare this presentation to make sure that, well, to refresh my memories about what I've been doing and what worked and what didn't. So I can also apply it now that I am in a new market in France, because before that I was in Argentina. Now, as we dive into today's first topic, building a career in the global language industry, I want to start with a thought. And this is it. If you're here today, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. You know, when you're an interpreter or a translator and you see many, many presentations in your life and you're like, how can they forget to actually share a slide? Well, this is how it happens. I'm very glad I shared it beforehand. So thank you for whoever is sharing the presentation now. So one thought, if you're here today, it's likely because this field isn't just a job for you, it's also a calling. At least it's the case for me. Languages have always been a powerful force in my life. And it took me years to figure out where I fit within this vast and dynamic industry. But whatever the challenges, doubts, and there are many, successes, and plenty of learning moments, what remained constant was my passion for connecting with others through language. When I began my journey, I didn't start learning foreign languages until my 20s. For many of you, the path may have looked different. You may have learned languages at home, but no matter how you arrived here, I hope that sharing my experiences will spark meaningful conversation during the Q&A or the rest of the event, and why not beyond the event, and we will be able to connect. Together, we can exchange ideas and learn from one another. After all, our field thrives on collaboration. It's a profession rooted in communication. As a French native, as you can hear, who became an adopted Argentinian by choice, and hello to all the Argentinian colleagues I've seen and from France as well, my journey has been shaped by two cultures. These influences show up in unexpected ways, like my storytelling style. And this is very interesting as well when we are linguists to see how culture tell their story or a fact. In Argentina, at least from my opinion, of course, and we can always debate, stories are often winding, beginning with the dive into history or context. Like sometimes I can start from the Inca antiquity to get back to my point. While I will let you know when to switch slides if you want. I don't know if it's you, Camila, but I will definitely let you know. Promise. Thank you for trying to find out. So in Argentina, it's all like twisting and turning style, convoluting ways. And in France, they like to get straight to the point before adding context. And I remember I first arrived in Argentina, I found this style perplexing, and I was often interrupting my speakers with the and, like, what's the point of your story? But in time, I embraced it. So if at some point you're wondering where is she going with this, don't worry, stick with me, and we'll get there. And if I'm unclear, if my English is not clear, especially because today I feel totally under the weather, and I may have to pause to cough or sneeze. So this meeting that we have right now can only get better and improve next time that we will meet. And I hope it's going to be the case, because I will be in better health, I hope. Well, if I'm unclear, please don't hesitate to ask, and I will repeat or clarify. So with that, let's begin by exploring what we see on the slide right now, meaning 3 guiding questions for today's talk. Why become a linguist? How do you pursue your path? And how do you keep growing once you're in it? So the next slide is actually a quote I like very much from Mandela, and that stick with me, I think, the first time I heard it, and it's now on my LinkedIn as well profile, is that if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. But if you talk to him in his language, that goes to his her heart. And this is how we can really reach people. And not only the language, I would say, but also the variety, the localization of the language. That is so important. I can definitely see it with French and Spanish, and all, of course, English as well, but in a lesser extent, because I don't manage English as well as French and Spanish. But we need people that actually speak our variant of the language. And on the next slide, I added something from Argentina that I love so much, and that was part of my whole education in France. It's comic from Keynote, an Argentinian comic, that explain why Mafalda wants to become an interpreter. And she wanted to, on that slide, she's saying that she wants to become an interpreter to help people to understand each other. And it's a valuable reason to actually become a linguist, or a translator or an interpreter. And what I think is that every career actually begins with a story, and finding your personal funding story, the spark that drew you to this field, isn't just about reflection. It can become a powerful drive, motivator when challenges arise. For me, it all began with my great grandmother. I was around 5 or 6 years old, I think, and she spoke only Poitevin Saintonge, which is a regional language influenced by French, Spanish, and English over centuries. And I was mesmerized by this process of my grandfather actually interpreting her words into French for me or my cousins, because whenever my great grandmother was speaking, I was not able to understand her. And even at that young age, I wanted to be part of this. I was also very curious to understand and convey meaning across linguistic boundaries. So that childhood curiosity never left me really. In fact, I also began I also began recreating those moments during games with my younger sister, pretending to be her interpret of an imaginary language. And looking back, it's clear that those experiences planted the seeds for what would later become my career as a translator and interpreter. Now, your foundation funding story might look completely differently. At least I hope so. And perhaps it's tied to a multilingual family, a moment of cultural discovery, or even an event in your life that undiscovered the power of communication beyond languages. But whatever it is, I encourage you to reflect on it and hold on to it, especially when you want to build a career, extend beyond what you really know. And it's, at least it works. It works. I mean, it works in present for me because it's like a compass when challenges arise and when you're questioning your place in the industry, etc., etc. At its core, the language industry is about connection. It's about helping people understand each other, making sure that they get the right message in their right language, whether it's through translation, interpretation, localization, that I'm not that familiar with because I have never studied or practiced or worked as a in the localization industry. But any linguistic skill basically is, to me, related to communication. And that's also what makes our work so fulfilling, I think. Now, enough with the why. Let's go to the next slide and focus on the how, right? And building a career in the global language industry isn't something that happens overnight. Like any profession, it's a journey that requires patience, practice, and persistence. And this is actually a poem that you can see on the right from a French poet, Nicolas Boileau, that wrote "Hasten slowly and without losing courage, 20 times. On the loom, put back your work, polish it again and again, sometimes add, often erase." And I think that those lines perfectly captures what it takes to master the art of translation and interpretation. And I wish I had knew that before, because I thought that, okay, I'm going to study translation and interpretation, and then ta-da, I'll be a translator, I'll be an interpreter, I'll be a manager. Once, in fact, you're just learning and learning all the time. And it's a never-ending process. So in the next slide and during this part, I will go over education, specializing in what you love and finding your niche. That I think is what will really make you different in the market. So for most of us nowadays, it was not necessarily the case before, but today the journey starts most of the time with education. My own path was somewhat unconventional, but I think not less than many of us. I think I began studying literature at La Sorbonne University in Paris, driven by a deep love for poetry and languages. And my first year was spent researching French writer Théophile Gautier and Spanish art, because I was already drawn by the Spanish language, and I dreamed of traveling to Spain and immersing myself in its culture. My second year took me to at the university took me to as a master in the master degree. Took me to the works of Jorge Luis Borges, an Argentinian writer and poet, and mostly because by that time I was living in Spain. And I fall in love with the Argentinian accent and culture, and I really wanted to speak that way. So I started researching the literature and decided to study Jorge Luis Borges, and at that time it was a good way to also justify why I needed to go to Argentina during my university studies. I had no idea where this would lead me, really. I simply followed my interests and these feelings I had about what I wanted to listen, hear, speak, etc., etc. And sometimes I think all it takes is a small nudge and from someone else to set you on the way you were looking for. And for that, you just need to be consistent and keep trying until the nudge comes. For me, it came during my master's defense. My research director asked me a question I'll never forget. He said, "Have you ever thought about becoming a translator?" That is a double-edged sentence. Like at the same time, I was thinking, okay, so I'm definitely not going to go for a thesis. I'm not shaped for university research. But at the same time, it was somehow an encouragement, and it became a turning point in my career because I had never thought about becoming a translator. I learned a second language so late that I wasn't sure I would even be able to translate. So I gave it a thought and started trying to translate as a volunteer first. And a few years later, I realized that I could combine my love for languages with another passion, which is interpretation. It's a bit fast forward right now, but let's say that I started volunteering, studying, working for agencies as a translator. It worked, and I will explain a little bit later on that. And then I realized that I could also become an interpreter, which was another dream I had. So I returned to school to learn the techniques that would allow me to bridge cultural and linguistic gaps in real time, either by simultaneous or consecutive interpreting. The beautiful thing about our professions, I think, is that it allows us to bring all our interests to the table. For example, I once attended a literary event in the Malba Museum in Buenos Aires featuring a French author called Jean Echenoz. And before the interview, we were queuing in the museum's hallway, and I vaguely remember a silhouette, a person that walked past us in line to a still closed door. And this person's words resonated with me. She said, "Good evening. I am the interpreter for the French author who is going to speak now. May I come in?" And the attendant opened the door for her and guided her to the interpreting booth, invisible to the public. As an about to graduate interpreter at that time, the first thing I felt when I heard those words was a lot of admiration and longing that never ceased to grow over the years for this incredible profession. And in this instance, my passions of interpretation and literature combined with the stunning setting, the Malba Museum. I remember wondering if I'd ever be in her shoes. Well, fast forward 6 years, and by a combination of coincidences that have never ceased to amaze me, I found myself interpreting for the same author who was back in Argentina, not once, but twice. And the second time was in the Borges room at the National Library in Buenos Aires. So for me, it meant, of course, a lot. And these moments reinforced what I had always known, that this is what I was meant to do, and I really wanted to do it. And those moments are important. I could also mention the first time a book was published with the translation I did. I remember especially the one from Spanish into French, a poetry book from an Argentinian poet, Diana Bellesi, who made me, this poet, she made me listen to the music of Spanish as I was able to heard it before understanding the words. You know, when you first listen to a language or a specific accent and you fell in love with the music of the language, but then you start learning it, speaking it, and then the meaning of the language prevents you to listen again to the music as it was before. Well, poetry, and especially this poet, gave me back this music, and I really wanted to translate it. And it was definitely a milestone that I used to keep forward when in doubt. Now, regarding the idea of finding your niche, the languages industry is incredibly diverse, right? And I think it's a great strength, from legal translation to literary interpretation. There is a lot of niches, there are a lot of interests for all of us. And there are things that I would never be able to translate or interpret. So I think it's important to focus on what you like, what your interests are, and also remaining open, because over time I found myself drawn to specializations that I never imagined, including psychotherapy, cybersecurity, and even baking. Well, I'm French, but I didn't bake at that time. Now I do. Okay, one of the most defining moments in my career came when I interpreting for a head of state for the first time. It was both humbling and exhilarating and, scary at the same time. That experience taught me a very important lesson. It is okay to dream big, because my biggest dream at that time was actually to interpret a president. And I was around 30 years old, and I was like, what am I going to dream about now? And that was a beautiful moment. And I wish you all to get to this moment when your higher dream is actually fulfilled and you have to create new ones. The same principle applies to another unexpected opportunity, sports. In 2018, I served as a conference interpreter for the Buenos Aires Youth Olympic Games. And that experience inspired me to set my sights on Paris 2024. I do remember this moment when Paris was selected as the host city. I remember saying, there is no way this event can happen without me in it somehow. And it's funny because I'm not sure I planned on getting there, but clearly everything I made, because it was in 2017, and then in 2018 I was part of the Buenos Aires Youth Olympic Games. So whenever you want something, keep making sure that it's present somehow in your head, because all your decisions will go toward this goal. And so during the Paris 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games, I coordinated interpretation services, and it was such a global event that it was both challenging and rewarding at the same time. And I learned so many things about our profession that I didn't know, how to plan unexpected languages, for instance, when you don't know which athlete is going to win. So there are so many things to learn all the time that it's really worth trying. And I also, it was great because I was also, at that time in 2018, I was already practicing sports a lot, because sports changed my life, my health, my mental health as well. And I was able to confirm that it has a lot in common with the interpretation. I use this metaphor of the bicycle. I'm sure you've heard already, when you learn interpretation or even translation, you go out. I mean, what the schools teach you is to actually ride without the little wheels. But then you have to practice and practice and practice and practice and train and train and train to be good and become an athlete and a great professional. So even though I do not practice bicycle at all, it was a good way for me to watch athletes and realize that it's actually the same training. To be professional, we need to practice. In other words, I think the best strategy I know is to explore your interests. So what interests you is a great question, and follow your curiosity. It will guide you to your ideal focus. And then experiment. Don't be afraid to try new areas that you feel you're interested in, but you haven't studied, because this is what we do as translators, as interpreters. We are generalists, right? We can learn quickly. And every project teaches you something like valuable, even if it's outside our comfort zone. And invest in skill building. Once you identify your niche, seek out opportunities to refine your expertise. It's truly important. Certifications, workshops that give you knowledge. And I remember interpreting for literature or movie industry, and I was like, gosh, I'm going to be paid for this job that I would definitely go and volunteer for. And this is also something that whenever I think that, I'm like, okay, so this is the good place for me. This is what I want to do. Okay, let's go to the last part about how to keep growing. And on this slide, on this part, I would like to talk about building your reputation, embracing technology, and a bit about self-care as well. So these three parts are on the next slide that we can see almost now. Thank you. A career in the language industry doesn't end once you've found your niche or once you're finished your study. It's a constant process of growth, adaptation, and learning. Continuing education, deliberate practice, volunteering, and networking are vital to staying relevant, refreshing your skills, and thriving in this ever evolving industry. When I graduated from my interpreting program, I found myself navigating the Argentinian market with little to no compass. I had no formal training in marketing, project management, or team leadership, but my curiosity and determination drove me to learn on the job, meet mentors, which is really important. People that inspire you will also show you how to do things, and take additional courses. So in 28, I started a small translation company, vice versa, which became a platform for my work and to be able to invoice, basically, as a translator, project manager, and interpreter. This step taught me invaluable lessons about entrepreneurship and client relations. Luckily, our associations and colleagues helped us improve by offering a lot of workshops, short courses, and trainings, be it in translation or interpretation. In 2018, I participated in the CCIC course, an advanced interpreting training in Cambridge, that helped me better understand where I stand as a professional interpreter and where I wanted to focus my energy. It is organized by Chris DeFortis and Julia Podger. And it is important because at that time, just an example, in my market at that time, I wasn't in touch with the staff interpreters or translator. I knew that there were staff interpreters and translator, but I only had a vague idea of what it was. And I wasn't sure if it was something I wanted to become or not. And this is one of the many things I took from this course. In the language industry, our reputation is an asset. Clients and colleagues will contact us based on our reliability, professionalism, and skill. Building a strong reputation takes time, consistency, and professionalism. Delivering quality work, meeting deadlines, and engaging positively with clients and colleagues are all critical. However, reputation isn't always within our complete control, and sometimes it can be challenged by misunderstanding or whatever. And these moments can be disheartening and can prevent us from moving forward because of fear, because we don't know, we don't want to. When faced with such challenges, it's also essential to focus on what we can control and the quality of what we do, our integrity, and just be consistent and professional. And whenever we have a chance, talk about what we've been doing. So remember, no single project or situation defines our career, and we just need to relate, communicate, network. This is why it's also so important, and we'll mention it. But once we found, once you found your footing, the journey doesn't stop either. In fact, sustaining and growing our career is an ongoing process that I would have liked to know before diving into it. In order to stay relevant, we need to adapt. And for that, of course, many of us, or at least I, would like to see the world kind of stop evolving so much, so fast in terms of technology. We are sometimes forced to learn things we were not interested in or not convinced it will be for better quality or working conditions. But I still remember when I discovered CAT tools for the first time, because I started translating without them. And I had this feeling that I had been working in the Stone Age when I discovered them. So in early 2018, when my clients began asking for remote solutions for interpretation, I was a bit more open about the idea. And it was long before they became the norm because of the pandemic. And around that time, I attended a workshop by Maha El-Metwali, who introduced me to cutting-edge tools, and among them, RSI and the different existing platforms. And the following year, I remember an international conference I supported as a conference interpreter. And two participants were talking during a coffee break and wondering why they had interpretation during this yearly conference, but never in between, and they were not able to communicate and keep working on what they've agreed. And this is why I found RSI interesting to meet my client needs, and I decided to embrace this technology to make sure that it works for us as linguists as well as interpreters, not against us. And I also remember the famous quote from Bill Wood in 2011, saying that interpreters will not be replaced by technology, they will be replaced by interpreters who use technology. And this, I'm gonna go a little bit faster on what I'm sharing with you, because I really want us to have time for Q&A, and it's already taking too long. So I'm gonna just jump into AI. And if you have any question about RSI, you can ask me later. But I think that so far AI isn't really ready to substitute us. And so far, technology never succeeded in substituting us. Speaking human, as LangTalent said, is something that only us can do. And there is a lot of questions and I'm really looking forward to the next speakers and topics that will cover this question. But there are tons of questions about responsibility and variety of languages and language combination, privacy, that humans are able to address better than technology. I'm sorry for the pause. I'm just trying to find what I can share quickly in the last minutes I want to spend on this. But I'm going to jump into networking. I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier and how important it is. Networking is a way for us to learn from others. And the importance of community in our field of expertise cannot be overstated. In 2020, I joined the executive committee of AmeriVox, a deliberate practice group for interpreters. We organized monthly practice sessions with 6 amazing conference interpreters for any colleagues out there. And it was really a rewarding experience, but also a reminder of the power of collaboration and also constructive criticism, which is a gift that allows us to improve as professionals. And if you're an interpreter here and you have never heard of AmeriVox, I think it's time to look it up. By the way, it's not the only practice group, but I'm biased, and I'm saying it out loud here, so you can also research for other groups because there are a lot of them. I'd be interested to know from the translators in this room if there are other, if there are practice groups for translators as well. In 2023, when I arrived in Paris, I also started with two other colleagues quarterly, every 3 months meeting, on-site meeting to unvirtualized with to unvirtualize. I'm not sure I can say that, but to meet people for real instead of being so remote all the time. And relationships often lead to opportunities as well. So the idea was actually given to us by a one-time event created by AIC, the professional and professional associations like AIC, to name but one, have also played a vital role in shaping my career. They provide opportunities to connect with peers, learn from industry leaders, defend our rights, and advocate for our profession. Professional associations are crucial in shaping the future of our industry, and it is a way for any of us to add our stone to this future. And when I started working as a team leader, when I started managing team, and which was an incredible experience, like really knowing what teamwork is, I felt this responsibility as well. Whenever you start working in a leadership position, when you have a team, when you're organized language services, you must be aware of the policies that you're applying and why you're applying them, because you can shape the industry, and your decisions will have an impact on freelancers, on the profession in itself. So I will finish with a quick, just before the conclusion, but we can stay on this slide. In 2019, I had the privilege of interpreting a talk by Ludmila Golovine, which will be part of the next panel, on vicarious trauma. And it gave me the tools to better understand a specific situation I experienced and make sure that it doesn't repeat itself. So attending workshop is also a way to take care of yourself or of your health in so many ways that I can't stop saying how important it is. Okay, as a conclusion, I am quoting Confucius, but we are not sure that it's attributed to him. Choose a job you love, and you will never have to work a day in your life. So with those words, I think we can close this presentation. I don't know if Eddie, if you want to come back for the Q&A, but I would love to hear from you, from the audience, if you have any question. Thank you.
Hello, Nathalie. Thank you so much for your presentation. I mean, both of us, Mila, Nathalie and I, both of us. No, there we go. Thank you, Nathalie, once again for your presentation. Your experiences are really valuable to us, and we're really happy to have you as our first keynote for the beginning of this conversation today, which will end tomorrow. To remind everyone, the next session is going to be our panel on essential skills for language professionals in 2025 with Melanie Francis, Mila Golovine, and Max Troyer. And of course, we still have Nathalie with us. If you have any questions for Nathalie, please make sure also your appreciation is well received. Thank you. That's all for you, Nathalie. It's like claps. There's digital claps. You cannot do.
Thank
You
you.
need to be able to open the microphone. But I thought it was a really wholesome moment when you started sharing, the path that you are going through right now, in terms of kind of like the projects that you're looking for, and that's really empowering. So I have to agree with the approach to your presentation. Definitely very insightful, and there are lots of principles there to follow. So we've already talked a little bit about this, but Gracie. Engelhardt has a question. She's saying, "How difficult was doing interpretation at the Olympics?"
It was terribly difficult because I was not able to interpret at all. I was only making sure that everyone was able to interpret in proper condition, in the best condition possible, given the difficulty of this event. Not only because I I didn't have time to really prepare and interpret, but also because it was not my language combination, because English was our pivot language and English is my C language as an interpreter. But to go a little bit further and answer your question, for interpreters, what is really difficult is that some sports like football, from day -1 to day 0 who are the teams, and therefore who are the languages. But for sports like race or bicycles, or you need to cross the finish line to actually know what languages will be needed. And after that, you have a window or 20, 40 minutes to go to the booth and start interpreting for the press conference. So it's a very short time, and everyone has to prepare just in case. And then just one more thing, the press conferences are very short. And usually I need a 5-minute warm-up before getting into the mood and really being good as interpreting. But when you have 15 minutes, it's already a third of it. So you have to be good on the spot. And so that would be my answer.
Thank you, Nathalie, for your answer. We have another one from Richard Powell. It says, "What advice would you give those of us just entering the profession, coming from another and not knowing where to start? Personally, I'm a translator, but I'm sure it applies for interpreters as well and other people. I came from tech and I'm mostly in sales and marketing. So I came into the industry and I'm not even a translator. But this question is for you."
It's a great question as well. Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Gracie, as well for your question. I would say, let's focus on translating. I would say find an article that you like and translate it. Translate it. See how long you need to translate it. See how challenging it is, and offer it for reading to a native friend, native in this language, so he or she can help you and let you know how good it is, etc., etc. And then start volunteering. It's for interpreters. It's a good thing as well. But start training yourself by testing, making sure that you like doing that, offering to volunteer in different situations, and then go and study. Certification studies is really, really important. I
Excellent. And
finished a
I
little bit
believe
abruptly, so sorry. But I hope
no,
I
no, no.
answer your question.
I think you did. And just to make sure we answer everyone's questions, Sol Brienza, and I want to thank our panelists who are ready to begin our next conversation. So hang around. Sol Brienza mentions, "What were the top challenges you encountered when managing interpreters at the Olympics?"
Mm, I think it's not only. I think it's making sure the way I see my role most of the time. I'm describing it as a conductor of an orchestra, and I think it's not only interpreters. Interpreters are a major part of what language services do, but it's the interpreters, the technology, the setup, remote, on site, the team that is supporting everyone, the interpreters and the technology. It's just making sure that all those different pieces are working together. I don't know if it's the top challenges, but it's definitely my main focus. And sometimes the challenge, I would say, is when something outside your services is not working and impacting your services, and you didn't think about that. So you have to learn very fast someone else specialty and understand why it's not working. So main challenges in a nutshell would come from outside what was scheduled and planned and organized. And it's always a good lesson to keep thinking ahead and beyond, outside the box, whatever can happen.
Yeah, and that was part of what you mentioned, right? When you say keeping your goals in mind, just despite of whatever you have, and then kind of like dreaming really big, keeps your scope open. It just seems like the right thing to do. Like, why limit yourself? And it's kind of like how the Stoics would put it as well, right? Like, why would you settle for less when you know you could be so much better? So thank you so much, Natalie. This has been
Thank you.
really insightful. We hope to have you back again in our future events, maybe
I'd
with
love to.
another great learning from your experiences, your panel. Thank you so much for joining us, and everyone has appreciated your presentation significantly. These will be available on YouTube, but it will also be available on our podcast. So there will be a Language Talent podcast. And of course, with big thanks to Nathalie for making this one happen. Up next is our Essential Skills for Language Professionals in 2025. The language industry has seen remarkable changes over the years, from evolving job roles to the introduction of powerful new tools. In this discussion, industry leaders will share their insights from both professional and personal experiences, exploring how the role of language professionals has shifted and what lies ahead. They'll offer valuable advice on the essential skills, tools, and strategies to help language professionals stay competitive and thrive in 2025 and beyond. Amazing. Melanie Francis is going to be joining us from Global Search, and Mila Golovine is joining us from MasterWord, and we have Max Troyer from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. So help me welcome our guests today, and we'll start our conversation. Hello, everyone, and our apologies for the short delay there. One of our guests is having issues, technical issues. Melanie Francis, hello and welcome. And Max Troyer, hello and welcome. Melanie, let's check your audio a little bit.
Okay.
Oh no, you sound incredible. Perfect.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you both for making it. It's the first time we meet even over a video call, Max. Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
Fantastic. And we have Mila. Hopefully her camera will turn on. Mila, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you. We cannot see you, but we will create
Okay.
a representation in our. It's all right.
All right. Well, we'll try to do our best. I don't know what's going on with the camera, but
Yep. And we'll be patient around that, but I want to make sure I give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves. I probably cannot make honor of your experiences, so I'll rather give you that responsibility. So, Max, because we haven't met before, I would love to have the honor to get to know you first, and we'll do Melanie and then Mila, and so that everyone in the audience can get a sense of who we are.
Thanks, Eddie. It's really great to meet you, and it's really nice to see so many people joining the stream. I am a professor of translation and localization management down in Monterey, California. I've been in the industry for, I don't know, pushing 20 years, and I've held many roles in the industry: project manager, engineer, desktop publishing, media engineering, all sorts of different things. And I'm really interested in like content, how to get content into and out of various platforms and applications and into a format that translators can actually translate. My classes include media and audiovisual localization. I teach games localization, and I have a programming for internationalization and localization course that I'm getting ready to launch this spring. So I'm an academic, yes, but I also do consulting and help mostly small and mid-sized agencies beef up their engineering departments. So anyway, I'm happy to join. Good to see everyone.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it's great to see your range of experiences. I'm sure they are going to be really good for this conversation. Melanie, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again, Eddie, and thank you for inviting me to the very first event. A big privilege, and it is a passion of mine, of course. Being a recruiter myself, it's a great topic. So I'm the founder and CEO of Global Search Recruiting and Consulting. We're quite unique in the sense of we're an external agency that recruits, but also because of my background, we offer a lot of complementary consulting services. So my background started out at a global external agency company in the UK, and then moved internally to build an internal talent acquisition team. So worked for a British company and relocated my life to the US, to Chicago for 4 years, to help launch a British company in the US. So got lots of relevant experience in terms of understanding how to localize recruitment globally, but also our company specializes in recruiting predominantly in the US or assisting companies that want to expand into the US. So in terms of the positions that we recruit for, we're extremely specialist, recruiting only in the localization industry and mainly the more senior positions. So sales, leadership, operations. So that's something we definitely are specialists in. I speak fluent Welsh, so quite unique there. So even in the UK, we do have a lot of localization. We're very passionate about language access ourselves in Wales. So it's just a great topic and community to be part of.
Thank you, Melanie. And we both miss the Welsh weather, of course.
Oh, yeah.
The daily rain and darkness. That's very characteristic of Wales. But thank you so much, Melanie, for joining us. And we can see Mila Golovine. Thank you so much. This was not going to be the same without being able to see you. Thank you so much for making an effort. Mila, tell everyone more about who you are.
Well, now that I'm not going to be invisible, right? So Mila Golovine, I'm founder and CEO of MasterWord Services. I've been in the language industry for over 30 years at this point. So I've seen the transition from when the internet first came out and we started using emails, and the first emails transitioned from telex, and then machine translation coming out and NeuroMT, and kind of the exponential tech change in the technology. I started as a translator and then interpreter, and then stayed mostly worked as an interpreter, worked as a simultaneous interpreter, consecutive interpreter, and in different settings. And then in every role in the business, right? From the first position when you were a company of one to now we are a strong mid-tier player in the industry. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much. And I just want to remind everyone that we are streaming live through YouTube through a private link. So if you want someone to join, share with them the YouTube link that we have. We will have the recording of this conversation and the previous keynote available on our website, multilingual.com/lang-talent/. You don't need the last slash, but just in case, right? And we will also have this conversation available on the LangTalent podcast, which will be available, we hope, very, very, very soon. But without any further ado, of course, like to ask our first question for today. And it is great that you've had so much experience. Sometimes, some of us who are being in the industry for a year, for 2 years, we lack some perspective on changes and how changes happened. And I've been in the industry now for 2 years. So we'd love to understand a little bit more about how the roles in the industry have evolved over the past few years. And I'd like to continue with Max, and then we'll go Melanie, and then Mila. We might mix it up, or, we can interject each other. But I think, Max, if you can give us your perspective on that, how have the roles in the industry evolved in the past few years from your perspective?
Yeah, well, we've seen a kind of a sea change in where talent is coming from. I think if you look 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you had basically translators and interpreters who were evolving in their careers and, started to know more and start helping their colleagues, and then eventually started managing teams and managing their colleagues. And those are the people who went on to create many of the agencies that now hire tons of translators and interpreters today. But what IBM did some research. I think we were all aware of this research that IBM did a long time ago, that if you have someone who is good at a skill, when you elevate them to a manager, that doesn't necessarily make them a good manager. It's not, the skills don't translate. So it's better to just take random people and assign them to manager roles, and they tend to do better. I'm not criticizing all these T&I folks who have created localization or translation agencies, but now we have people, specialists, who are going into the industry, coming into the industry from elsewhere, like yourself, Eddie, coming into the industry with new ideas and really innovating in amazing ways. No one has said AI yet in this panel presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and say we're all dealing with how AI is changing things. But basically, as Mila said, we've seen a lot of changes in this industry. We've seen it all, in fact, and that's my main point, I guess, is that we've seen a shift in who is kind of involved in localization, and we've been through technology changes as well.
Melanie.
Thank you. Okay, so in terms of roles, as I mentioned in my intro, I focus more on the sales, leadership, and operations, not so much the linguists. So in terms of sales, something that has been huge is really the skills of technology. So a couple of years ago, I know when I was getting pitched by kind of CRM companies in terms of recruitment, I'd ask a technology question, and consistently the salesperson would say, "Oh, I'm going to have to bring in my technology expert to answer that question. And it's kind of like, well, what were we doing in this meeting then? Because, I want to know the tech. So now, as you mentioned, the AI is really the big thing, the big topic. That's one of the key questions, clients are asking, especially in this industry. So in terms of the feedback I've had from LSP owners now, when they're looking to hire sales candidates, ideally solutions architects, solutions engineers who have that kind of sales ability are more becoming the ideal candidates. So, that's something in terms of sales that we're seeing, but also sales candidates that can adapt quickly to technology, but also have a passion and are curious. So in terms of marketing, something we've seen is more kind of data automation, obviously kind of anything that's kind of AI integrations, tools, there's just so many. Data analysis. Personally, I can also kind of attest as a business owner that data's never been more relevant. So when we're talking to a highly specialized candidate, coding that candidate correctly so our AI tools can very efficiently kind of read that data within a few seconds and find that ideal candidate. And of course, linguists, in terms of quality assurance, desktop publishing, they're the kind of new positions. But essentially all I'm really saying is any position, you need that kind of tech skill there.
And thank you. That's really great to hear, and we will probably talk more about that as the conversation goes along. Mila, you of course have a huge experience hiring yourself. Can you tell us what you've seen?
Well, I'm going to be building up to what Melanie and Troy said, and so I think one of the most important skills, a couple decades ago, and last decade, one of the important things was what you know. I think the most critical thing and the most critical skill today is how fast can you learn. Because today, it doesn't matter how much you know today, because by the end of the day, technology and things have already changed. And so how quickly can you learn? And then how quickly can you adapt? And so ability to adapt to change, ability to integrate change, in a way, ability to handle stress, because change creates stress. And that's why we're all kind of, a lot of people are so nervous. What's going to happen tomorrow? How am I going to handle tomorrow? So ability to handle stress, ability to integrate change, ability to learn fast, and flexibility. So what one of my mentors told me was one of the most essential business skills was ready, fire, aim, as opposed to ready, aim, fire, because by the time you're done aiming, it's changed. That has become critically important today.
Thank you, Mila, for putting in that perspective. And of course, we will be talking throughout this conversation about what are some of those skills that, stand the proof of time, to put it that way. But while we get there, I think a big element of perspective is understanding whether, for those of us who are new, right? For me, the AI wave in the language industry, it's new. I wouldn't say it's a black swan for me, but it's definitely like a significant change. It's like all of a sudden this thing, I thought we were on it, but apparently it did made an impact. It didn't destroy anything. It just kind of like transformed things around, kind of like how things happen in the universe sometimes. Max, you've seen some of these technologies, come and stay, some come and go. Is this AI wave any different from what you've seen, or how is it different from what you've seen?
Well, we've seen it all before, I think, in this industry, and I do think I'm going to start with AI. I think is a little bit different, but with neural machine translation and automation, we've basically seen that we can do more with less resources, less people resources. to some degree, neural machine translation allowed a translator to go from 2,000 words a day to maybe 5,000 words a day, and just amazing scale in what they were able to accomplish in a single day. And from a project management point of view, when you are trying to manage all these translation and localization projects, if like back when I started, it was, email and Excel spreadsheets to manage project flow and track where everything is. But now if you're not using a translation management system to kind of see where your projects are and manage translation memories, I don't know, some people on this stream might remember a translation kit where we like literally created a zip file that had the translation memory, the files for translation, the reference files, and that would go to the translator. But the first wave was really automation, and that did not require any artificial intelligence. Just through fancy, well-written algorithms, we can automate a lot of what we do in the industry and stop being glorified file pushers and sit back and not quite relax because things go wrong a lot. But AI, I think, is a little bit different in the sense that it can start kind of thinking like a project manager and prioritize and route strings from another AI to a different AI and even to a human if none of the AIs can figure things out. So I do think that we are going to see a slight downturn in how many people are needed, and that those people that remain are going to need the analytical skills, the creative thinking, the resilience, flexibility, and agility that will let them figure out how we're going to automate and use this AI to our advantage.
Yeah, thank you, Max. And I think, Melanie, you've probably seen this also from the sales and kind of like growth ecosystem, right? People in marketing, people in growth, people in customer success. It's almost like you probably need to have some knowledge of this information. Is this what's mainly happening? What are your clients asking for, I guess, in this wave of AI, which is the conversation?
I mean, the best candidates at the moment are the ones that are proactively putting themselves on courses outside their own company so that they can bring more information into the company. So a couple of great sales candidates I've been speaking to recently, I don't even have to ask them about AI. They're already telling me, right? So what I do as part of my role is I take the initiative to spend maybe an hour a week looking into AI tools that can make our sales department more efficient. And then I bring that business case to the CEO, the leadership team. And, something that from working in the US and working in the UK, one of the culture differences has been that the US have always been quite passionate about self-improvement and that kind of continuous learning, whereas in the UK, we tend to think it's the employer's duty to put us on training and or the government is going to pay for it. But now that's just not good enough. So I can't comment on Europe or anywhere else, but that's definitely something that I would encourage anyone in any position. Go and find the information, because AI is evolving, so many new tools. But the problem is there's so much noise. You can get a bit lost in all these different AI tools. I know I kind of started getting a bit lost with everything last year. And I was thinking, you know what? We need to focus on what we're good at as humans and experts, not kind of turning too robotic and relying too much on that. So what I would say, I attended when I went to Lockworld, a talk, Global Sake talk in San Francisco. Gabriel Fairman, the CEO of BureauWorks, was showcasing how he was using AI to actually make linguists more creative. So if these linguists are now, automating and being as productive, using AI to their benefit, they then have more time to be creative. So that, I would say, is something super positive that I got out of that. So yeah, and what I will say is, again, my experience of living and working in the US versus the UK, I always found that the US was about 5 years ahead of the UK, and we're pretty developed. So I remember in 2019 when I was presenting to the board, where I was head of global talent, about how are we going to hit our headcount next year. I kind of said, you know what, instead of just investing 100K in one more recruiter that has the productivity of maybe hiring 10 people a month, why don't we first look at what AI tools there are? Now, there wasn't as many as now, but there was already automation back 5 years ago that we're only talking about in the UK now in the recruitment industry. There was chatbots that could kind of talk to candidates. But something that I don't know if this happens now too much is AI is kind of being used and tagged onto all these kind of not very complex tools. So I actually got pitched by a company in recruitment, and they were like, yeah, we're AI. And I just said to the salesperson, okay, tell me what is the artificial intelligence in what you're trying to sell me. And literally he said, oh, I'm going to have to ask my tech guy. And I'm thinking, so this isn't an AI solution. It's just an automated tool. So I think it's really important for us not to get missold by, the word AI, and really kind of ask and really put the pressure on someone. Okay, so what exactly is this complex AI solution? And, a lot of the time then you can kind of quickly pick out from the noise which tool you want to use.
That's very interesting to have this wave be one of those waves where everyone is like, let's dig into it, but let's be careful. Which is a really, really interesting development. Mila, from your perspective, what do you see this as very different, similar, or how do you see it?
Well, it is different, right? It is different, but it is similar to when computers came on. So it changed everything. So AI is changing everything. And from that perspective, however, people who, it's not going to replace people, right? The same way as computers didn't. People who know how to use computers replaced in the workforce people who don't. And the same thing, people who are fluent with AI will replace people who or will be able to advance faster and better than people who don't. But Max talked about project management skills, and Melanie talked about sales, and I want to go and talk about the translator and the interpreter. And I think what is going to be critically important right now are the core skills that we have. In kind of in a chaos and in a massive change, we want to return back to basics. And our core skills are more important than ever. First of all, I believe that our industry is going to explode exponentially because the amount of content that we translate today is very minimal compared to the amount of content that's being produced. The amount of human communication happening today and compared to what's being interpreted is also very small. So we're actually going to see an exponential expansion and growth in our industry through quote unquote democratization and access. And the boring things like, I don't know, translating the spec sheet for a packing list, those are going to go away. But the more creative, when you're looking at where's the mistake, where's the misunderstanding, how can you see it better, how can you train an engine, how can you make this communication even better than it is, that is going to be what's more essential. So kind of like making our job more fun. So maintaining core skills, really learning and practicing those hybrid scenarios how can AI assist you live when you're interpreting? How can you use those glossaries? How can you use those note-taking skills from AI as opposed to, having to shorthand on paper? And then developing critical thinking, right? Critical thinking in terms of it is much more difficult to notice a mistake in a fluid text. It is if you are not really a subject matter expert and somebody starts telling you with great elaborative fluid fluency and using even potential technical terms, something you cannot tell the difference. But mistakes are critical. A very simple sentence: execute, not pardon, the power of a comma. Execute, comma, not pardon, versus execute not, comma, pardon. is a difference between a life sentence and a death sentence. So for us, being able to pick up the slightest nuance in where we are going to naturally tend to go, okay, it sounds fluid, kind of like disengage. That is going to be one of the most critical things. And the role of a human is even much more important. So maintaining core skills, practicing those hybrid scenarios, developing that critical thinking, and staying on point. And I want to build up on this previous presentation. If you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. Pick what you love. So when you pick doing what you love, you don't see challenges as on the way. You see challenges as not challenges as in the way, like something preventing you. You see challenges as on the way. You experience what's called eustress. So keeping up and making sure you're really specializing in what you love, so you're looking at even more and more challenging opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's like looking at the wave as devastation or a wave to ride. So this is really interesting how this, of course, permeates to other. It is not only particular to translators and interpreters, but as we've seen, like sales, marketing, engineers, kind of like everyone needs to be open to these things. And I have to agree with you. From what I do, right, I cannot make a good writer with AI. You're either a good writer or you're not a good writer. And if I ask you to use AI, or if you decide to use AI, that criteria as a writer of what like sounds AI-ish, it's very impressive how, for example, our growth team, the team in charge of marketing, can really see when something is created by AI versus when someone actually took the effort to generate this message that's compelling, that is like it's only human can add, like what you're mentioning, Mila, this like nuance. So independent of which like part, which profession you're on, these are like really key components in what you've seen for translators, interpreters, engineers, designers, anyone in our industry and other industries with this whole AI wave. And you've been giving us some recommendations already, but what would be your recommendations to them? If you would have to like list them per se, or just give them one recommendation, whatever you choose to do. Max, and then we'll do Melanie and Mila again.
Sorry, can you clarify the question? Recommendations for someone entering the career, recommendations for
someone in the industry, a professional in the industry, whether, what are some of those, and we're getting into the timeless skills here that we think they should keep in mind, but what are some of those recommendations to them today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if reframing the question, like how to stay employed and not get laid off in one of these awful waves. I don't know. It's, I mean, I'm finding out like people that have been pivotal in companies aren't safe. I don't want to be doom right now, but I think if I were trying to stay in this industry, I would try to keep my curiosity alive. I would try to network as much as possible, try to connect with all verticals within a company, try to make myself indispensable through just being the friendly person that people talk to. I think part of that is being motivated and being self-aware of what's going on. One of the things that I learned about, we have some graduates at Netflix, and I learned about this concept, searching for dissent, where if someone comes up with an idea at Netflix, they're supposed to go around and talk to as many people as they can about that idea and try to search for people who can kind of shoot it down or poke holes in it. The idea is to make that concept stronger. So I think that that resiliency, having empathy when people are bringing you their concepts and you have to say, oh, if we've done that. I'm thinking of Renato Benenato in the industry. If you've ever seen him present, or you've seen him raise his hand at a conference and he's like, oh, 5 years ago, company X did that, and 10 years ago, company Y did that. So how is that different today? Anyway, I think, yeah, it's just try to maintain curiosity, but also like obviously building your technology skills, updating your technology skills, learning what AI can and cannot do, trying out different AI engines, see what they can do. I thought it was interesting. There were some people in the chat who said that they're under NDA and can't use AI. And I've heard from multiple translation agency owners that one of the things that keeps them up at night is translators who are told not to use AI, but then do. And how do you work around that? Anyway, so yeah, it's a crazy time in our industry, but we are rising to the occasion.
That's definitely true, Max. Melanie, how do you see this? What would you recommend?
Well, there's lots of different kind of ways we can kind of answer that. But to Max's point, the first thing I was going to talk about was curiosity. So that's something my clients look for. That's the trait. So especially sales recruitment, it's not an exact science. A resume doesn't, it only tells so much. It's the person, the traits are curiosity. So I had a client that was looking for a director of production, and they had just transitioned to Plunet. Obviously, there are other TMS companies out there. But the most important quality and trait they were looking for was someone that was curious, because they didn't know how to use Plunet. So they needed this person to be poking around and seeing how this TMS could be tailored to maximize their kind of company goals. So that's something that's really important, which we've touched on. Embracing AI. So, it's no secret that some jobs are, people are going to get laid off due to AI. So it's getting ahead of that and seeing, how can you reposition yourself and adapt where you're using AI to your advantage. And like I touched on, if you're in sales, maybe looking at that kind of solutions architect route or marketing. It was quite interesting. I was on a lock walk in Monterey as part of Lockworld, and one of my candidates I'd known, who was very happy in their position. But she said to me, Melanie, ABD. I was like, what does ABD mean? She said, always be developing. So, whether that's looking for a next opportunity outside the industry, not necessarily to move, but just to kind of see what's out there and keep current, or looking at the next opportunity within your organization. So how do I develop so that I can get a new opportunity, maybe a leadership role, or segue into a different, department. So yeah, that's kind of some recommendations. And, there was a quote that I kind of picked up, a general quote this week, which kind of resonated. I'm a new mum as well, so resonated with, again, navigating the challenge of motherhood as well. Just really to what Mila said. So there's really not a difficult thing unless you decide it's difficult. Otherwise, it's just the next thing you're figuring out. So just something positive is that mindset. And that would be my recommendation.
Thank you so much, Mila. You've already given us a bunch of recommendations today.
Well, going from a position of a company, right, where you're looking having seen what people really succeed and what people don't succeed. And I think the most important thing is loving what you do. Because when you love what you do, then you are automatically driven to be the best at it. And when a person is the best, when you are competing with yourself every day for being the best you can be, then you're also authentic. When you're authentic, it shows, it shines. Some people for whom this is not a job. When you do what you love, it is not a work-life balance, because you never stop. You're wanting to do more. You're wanting to learn more. So people for whom it's a drive, people for whom it's a life mission and goal, and for me it has been always, versus people for whom it's a job. The person for whom it's a job, the person who is coming in, clocking out, is probably not in the right place, and it's probably the person who's going to be the first to go. as opposed to, and I'm not saying you need to work 80 hours a week, right? There are some people who are incredibly efficient and they work 8 to 5, and in that 8 to 5 they accomplish and change the world, right? And there are people who come in and maybe work the same amount of hours and it's a job and nothing gets done, right? Or you don't feel like they're really progressing or learning. So questioning, going back deep inside and going, am I doing what I love? And there is different management theories. There's some EOS theory says right person, right seat. You have seen aligning the person, I think it's Drucker, aligning the person to their strength. Dr. John DeMartini talks about aligning people to their highest values. So there are different theories behind it, but the deepest one is, are you doing what you love? And then you have absolute job security if you do. And I'm sorry, I'm going to finish with a quote that I love from actually Dr. John DeMartini. And he says, wisdom is the instantaneous recognition that every crisis is a blessing.
Every crisis is a blessing. Thank you so much, everyone. I want to ask those that are still in the stream on YouTube, those that have arrived specifically for this panel, to start putting your questions there. We've seen, of course, some comments about whether or not to use artificial intelligence, people using NDA and kind of like opinions on that. We still have a few more questions. We are in the panel Essential Skills for Language Professionals in 2025, but as those that have been here have seen, this applies to not only language professionals, but professionals in many other industries. But for language professionals in particular, this is super insightful. There is one concept that I recommend we think about for those that work remotely. I remember, when you start working remotely, we talked a lot about work-life balance. And then one of the leaders that I worked with, he worked with the concept of work-life integration, meaning work is part of who you are and part of your life. And how do you integrate that? And how does, in a way, what you do accommodates to the way in which you live? And it's the same for a lot of people will be like, oh, that's the same thing. That's what I mean about like work-life balance. But sometimes when you say balance, it's almost like you are they're like contrasting positions or focuses. Rather, it is the same. It's part of like the same construct. And then when you say work-life integration, then your brain tends to think about it a bit differently. And I would agree with Mila. If you love what you do, you almost have to really make sure we have things like time boxing, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to do a lot of other things like have lunch, because you're so into what you do and you get in flow that you really forget to have lunch. Not because you are an unhealthy person who doesn't want to eat. It's like, no, you're just so excited about things, you just keep going. So habit makes a huge difference. We'll probably talk more about this tomorrow on the second panel. But I personally recommend that you have a structure. If you love working remotely, because part of like my work-life integration is that remote work is amazing. It allows me to live in my hometown in like Colombia, in a city that most people wouldn't know. My wife is from the same hometown. So remote work in itself, it's kind of like enables and empowers me. So what allows me to do this is to be able to do things like time boxing, having the greatest internet. So I'd really recommend, if you want to be in an industry like the language industry, you really need to have like the best tech setup. I mean, a good screen and a good camera. It seems obvious, but you'll be very surprised. Kind of like how surprised I am to have like people that are not able to like communicate with teams across different geographies because they just don't have like good internet, and they could be amazing professionals. So I really recommend the basics are covered, especially with remote work in our industry. But please start adding your questions in the form of a question so that I can read them whenever we get them. But as a type of summary, Max, Melanie, and Mila, you've mentioned some of these. There are some skills that are applicable to not only our industry, but many other industries. What do you think, from your own experience as professionals and leaders, what do you think are timeless skills that have that were amazing to have 20 years ago, amazing to have today, and will continue to be amazing? And I know you've mentioned curiosity, so if you want to expand more on that, what has that done for you? That's amazing. I personally call curiosity optimizing for serendipity. which to me really what it means is I just put myself in the places that I find things could happen, and that's usually like my gut feeling being like, I really should go to ATA 65, or I should really go to like this other event, or I should really talk to this person. And that usually something amazing happens out of that. But it's not that I thought, when I meet with this person, this is what's going to happen. It's like, no, you can't tell. But what you can do is have that level of kind of like curiosity. And I would agree with Mila that it's much better to make it than fake it. In this case, you can fake curiosity, but it's so tiring. It's very tiring to fake curiosity. But Max, I know we've talked about these skills. If there's anything you would like to add, it'd be great.
Yeah, well, first of all, there are a lot of good training opportunities out there, and I think that one of the most valuable aspects of those training opportunities are the networking aspect. And I think that is also a skill that I think everyone can kind of cultivate and work at. When you go to these conferences, Loc World, the Global Sake, ATA, how good are you at connecting with people? And I think one of the coolest things is when you don't network for yourself, but you network for others, where you meet someone, and then later in the conference you meet someone and you're like, oh, have you talked to that person? I talked to them earlier. You should definitely connect with them. And you make introductions, make connections. That makes you someone who makes connections, and that's a really useful thing. I also think that a skill that you can use or apply is mentoring. And if you've been in the industry for a long time, try to find one of the organizations, Women in Localization. I think, the Middlebury Institute has, our department has a mentoring program, the TLM mentorship program. There are many ways that you can mentor and get involved and help out people that are, joining the industry, young people joining the industry, welcome them into the industry. And also we have pairings of like really senior people who want to, or like new managers who want to be paired with a very senior manager. And so I think those two things, networking and mentoring, are things that aren't like in a traditional skills list, but those might be the things that help you take your career to the next level.
I think I would have to agree, Max. And if anyone sees kind of like the famous like pyramid of learning, like when you learn the most is when you teach others. So mentoring really gives you the opportunity to kind of like introspect and kind of like teach others about some of the things, not necessarily teach, but as you've seen others develop, you start seeing where are the places to kind of like give guidance, and that feels a lot like teaching. So thank you, Max, for sharing that. Melanie.
Yeah, just kind of I think this is a great kind of panel because we're all adding different perspectives, but kind of on the same page as well. So just to your point, Max, networking, especially when you're working remote, you do really have to make a conscious effort to get out there, get on a plane, make provisions, with your family so that you can kind of go away for a week. It's not kind of, you do have to kind of be a bit more global with your mindset there. And if you can do that, that is kind of just a game changer. What I will say also about networking personally, I come back re-energized because, when you're working remote, you are a bit in your bubble. You're losing that kind of collaboration, kind of synergy around with your colleagues. And, there's nothing better than getting your team in a room and just kind of bouncing ideas off each other. So yeah, definitely say networking. I mean, we're really lucky in the Loc community that we love knowledge sharing. It's kind of that industry where we're curious about people, language, travel. So it's just great. And also in the Loc community, just all the social events that are kind of warm up, where you're kind of networking in a more relaxed setting, because not everyone has those skills or want to be in a room and start just striking up conversations with strangers and all that. So I think the networking events in the industry are just great. So that's definitely something I agree with, because a timeless skill is interpersonal skills. So, in terms of building relationships, as you said, Max, if you're mentoring someone else in your team. But also, if you're new to the industry, asking questions, because you might start in one position, but if you're networking with people in other departments and, tell me a bit more about what you do, and maybe then you might, through your interpersonal skills, find that you're better suited to a different department in the industry. And something that I will say is there's some research being done that kind of 30 they call it like the silent generation, the kind of people like our parents that, back in the day, they maybe needed to hone in on one skill and that could last them 30 years in a career. And now it's kind of every 2 years, like maybe even 1 year with AI, what are your new skills that you're learning? You have to keep reskilling now. And that's fun, as long as that's something that you're curious about and obviously loving your job. So yeah, that's kind of, for me, kind of tying everything up. And I know there are a couple of questions in the chat. There is one that's been addressed to me. So I'm not sure, Mila, you want to
let's get Mila to give us a bit of her insights, and then we'll get onto the questions. I've seen some of this as well. Thank you so much for the questions, everyone. Keep them coming. And as some of you have asked, we will have this conversation on the website, multilingual.com/lang-talent.com. Sorry, that's -talent/, and that's it. Mila, before we go into the questions, tell us a little bit about those skills that you see that are timeless, that are good forever.
So the timeless skill, and I want to make one comment because I see a lot of comments in the question. AI about looking at other jobs, how to change, do we leave the industry? Do we stay in the industry? Is there something left for us in our industry? And those questions are not just coming in this chat. Those questions are everywhere. AI is affecting every single industry: doctors, lawyers, accountants, movie producers, truck drivers. There is not an industry or a space that is not affected by AI today. So it's affecting humanity in general. And that's an amazing thing, because that will allow us to grow and evolve. So there is no quote unquote escape from this wave. You either learn how to ride it or you drown in it. And I think the timeless skill is communication. And actually, I would want to focus on 3 timeless skills. One is ability to communicate with others. Another skill that is critically important is being able to integrate stress and staying connected to self in a moment of the highest stress, because we are biologically wired. When change happens, that is actually one of the factors that activates stress. We like things being the same. And so ability to integrate stress and managing it. And then the last skill is making sure that how do you make sure that you are actually aligned with yourself, right? Aligned with, again, I keep repeating that. It seems like, but you can say it another way. So building the adaptability through practice, right? Critical thinking, and maintaining and building up on your core skills.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And for those of you that are listening, remember this conversation will be available, multilingual.com/lang-talent. And it will also be available on YouTube and on our podcast, LangTalent, on Spotify. You will receive an email with the learnings from these sessions. And hopefully we will have Melanie, Mila, and Max again with us in the future. We should have written Mila instead of Ludmila so that everyone would have their name starting with an M. Just putting that out there. We do have one question. We have several questions, but I'm going to start with one that is pretty interesting. This one is going to be for Mila. And then I'll ask the one for Melanie. It says, Casey says, a lot of translators fear they are slowly being made into AI post editors. Agree, disagree? If you disagree, can you give specific counter examples? It sounds like a quiz in a Middlebury class.
I think it'll be both. Yes, we are post-editing AI, but it's all a matter of perspective. Are we really post-editing AI, or are we critically thinking through the context that is there in AI? Are we looking for that one comma that is a difference between life sentence and death sentence? And so the ability to really, in that moment, to step back and chunk things up and look at it and going, for what purpose am I doing this? Who is on the other side of it? And if we do that, then this editing process, this post-editing process, is really takes a different meaning, right? And then there's a whole part of content that AI really cannot handle. AI can make suggestions, and I frequently, for example, look at what make suggestions for, and it's a creative process. And I'll look at the 5 different things AI suggested, and I'll take a word from here, a little bit of an idea from here, and I'll make my own thing. But that process now is a lot faster, right? So I guess that's my response. It's both. But it's how you look
Thank
at
you, Mila. That's a high level answer. Thank you so much. And Melanie, I love the next question because it's from the perspective of someone who is looking at the industry. As I looked into the industry 2 years ago, right? Like, do you think the language services industry is an attractive sector for sales and marketing professionals? Does the intangibility of the product or products or services, I guess, intense industry competition and AI threat put people off? How do you see the industry?
Well, I'm obviously biased because I'm passionate about the industry. But so to kind of remove the bias, let's look at some data. The reason why I set up my company during COVID was because the industry was still growing. Okay, not by as much as it was year previous. And that's fantastic. So it's something, I mean, language is something that, you know, if you're passionate about that, then, you know, it's something that you're going to enjoy selling. If you're curious about culture and all that kind of thing, or maybe you've got, like some of my candidates, some experience, maybe a family member or a friend is deaf, you know, or you work in a kindergarten. And I was quite impressed when I was looking at a few, how, well, in the UK, it's BSL as opposed to ASL is actually taught to kindergarten children. So it's definitely not something that's going away. And also, there's really not many candidates looking to leave. A lot of our sales and marketing candidates are maybe wanting to join a language technology company instead of a language services company, or they want to stay in language services, but they're looking for a company that's really embraced technology. So one of the questions they ask me before I put them forward is, what's the company tech stack? You know, what are they doing to invest in technology? What are the AI tools I'm going to get given to be equipped to focus on selling? You know, if I'm just going to be sending out emails manually, I'm not interested in working for this company. So yeah, not hardly anyone leaving the industry from our perspective, and also you know, to answer the second part of Michael's question, is, you know, are people looking to leave because of intense industry competition? Well, you shouldn't be in sales if that is putting you off. That should be something that excites you, fires you up, and you always navigate. You know, something I learned when I was working in America, one of my American recruiters who was amazing was saying that when you see a mountain, you find a way to either go over, go around, go under, and that is the mentality of any good employee, not just in sales.
Thank you, Melanie and Mila. Max, there is a question from Oak3555, and I'm putting it on you because of your reaction to the companies that are not allowed, that are having people sign NDA so that they don't use artificial intelligence. And this is not unique to hires, right? We have, I have an entire interview from someone with Mugais from MemoQ. He's the head of sales of MemoQ, and he's saying he's got companies that want to hire them, you know, for their language services that say, we don't want you. tell us what others are doing in terms of AI. We don't want to use it, but just tell us what they are using, and don't use it on us, please. And there are some privacy concerns, but my question really is about companies and people that are refusing to integrate AI in their workflows or working with it. Is there a future for them in the language industry, or they're going to have a slow death?
No, I think there are definitely companies and individuals who are not using AI, and that is totally fine. I've gotten into a couple arguments with mainly TMS directors at TMS companies. I have my personal theory is that when you're doing transcreation or marketing translation, that when you show a translator a machine translation suggestion, you are polluting what the brilliant solution that they might come up with. And people vehemently disagree with me on that and say that you inspire translators with MT. But I personally feel that, and even neural machine translation, if you're doing like marketing or transcreation and you want an original translation that is the best it can be, that by showing MT, you are potentially shooting yourself in the foot. I also want to mention the founder of We Are Very, Ronaldo de Ziger. I don't know how to say his last name. I was talking to him the other day at SlaterCon, and he told me that when he hires translators, they come to him and say, okay, I'll take your translation test. I want to translate for We Are Very. And he says, okay, write 500 words about anything you want. And that's how he evaluates a translator's skills. That's one of the ways they evaluate a translator's skills. If they can't write 500 words from scratch and it be a compelling piece of content, then how could they possibly be good translators? And I love that. And we're actually seeing that kind of manifest itself in people that don't even speak another language are starting to get involved in the localization industry, because they are the referees for the AIs. When the AI is confused, it will reach out to a subject matter expert who doesn't speak the source language, and that subject matter expert will be asked, what can you explain this sentence and make it make sense regardless of what the source said? So I've kind of crossed the line back into AI, but definitely my wife is a translator. She translates for the cosmetics industry in France and the cookbook. She does a lot of cookbooks. No AI in use there. And I think purposely not wanting to be influenced by AI or even machine translation to some degree. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's incredible. We've gotten some companies come to us and say, hey, Multilingual, we'd like to translate your magazine. And he's like, it's going to be pretty difficult to translate some of these articles, right? It's not a direct translation. Mila, you have something to say?
I want to make a comment.
Yes.
So I agree with Max. And actually, a lot of our translation happens without AI. There's not just the creativity component. Human creativity is better. There's also the huge cybersecurity risk component. And we work in a lot of regulated industries, and the cybersecurity is a huge concern. So, however, there are AI tools that we can use in other parts of the process, and so we can not be separated from this AI revolution, right? So the translation process can potentially be completely without AI, but it doesn't mean that, I don't know, invoice processing or some other part of the workflow is not automated and improved.
Thank you. And we have 3 minutes on our scheduled time. This time we did much better than the last one. Do we have any final thoughts, Max, Melanie, Mila? I'm seeing a few other questions. And mostly is this idea of like, really, is it fine to not use AI? I thought we were going to be forced to use AI. I don't think anybody's forced to do anything. But if you deny yourself certain opportunities to optimize certain places of the work that you do, I don't think you'll be thinking like, what did you say? It was ABD. Always developing. It doesn't really seem like a developing mindset or a growing mindset. Any final thoughts, Mila, Melanie, Max, before we go?
I mean, AI is definitely part of, even outside this industry on like a personal level. I use it, if I don't know, I needed to draw up a legal document, and I just typed into AI, write me a legal document for this. read it, and then that I see that as a suggestion, and then I can tweak it and put my personal touch on there. Or if I'm trying to write a complex email to a client and I really don't have all this time to analyze everything and think, I will write the email myself. And then, because I'm not a writer, just say to ChatGPT, proofread this email. And with the word proofread, it's not going to give me any new ideas because it's from me. The client's asking me my opinion, for hiring people internally in a different country. Write me an employment contract in, what are the things I need to consider, observing holidays in this country. I mean, it's just for me super useful. But again, I'm using it more on a retail level to maybe save me 30 minutes, but kind of embedding it into a business process is really where you're getting value add.
Mila, Max?
I just want to not let us lose sight of the forest. I mean, the language services industry's goal is to build bridges to help cultures communicate. And I think whatever we do, whatever technology we use, we need to evaluate it and decide if it helps us further that mission. One of the things that I've been interested in is how localization departments within like a buyer on the client side can be considered profit centers instead of like service providers that are drains on the company's bottom line. And so elevating the localization industry, elevating those localization departments, reminding everyone that not only are we building bridges of communication, we are leading to global growth for many of these companies, and we are responsible for adding to the bottom line and overall profitability of these countries. So we should be proud of that and celebrate that.
Absolutely, Max. I really love that idea, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. Mila, any final thoughts?
I want to talk about an elephant in the room. There is 3 billion people who do not have are behind the digital divide. They either don't have digital connection, or they're 40% of the world don't have access to education in the language that they understand. And there is that's a whole 1/3 of us who are behind this technology revolution. And we can actually, through the innovation that we have created in our industry, today we can leapfrog the marginalized languages and help progress and help advance them. So think about what you learned today, how the new tools, the new technology, how can we help maybe other languages that are there in your country, and that also opens new markets and provides additional ROI.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melanie Francis from Global Search, Ludmila Golovine from MasterWord, and Max Troyer from Middlebury Institute for doing this. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I think it's been super insightful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone who has joined us live on YouTube, thank you so much for being part of Language Talent or LangTalent 2024. Tomorrow, we have 2 more sessions. Similar to how we did it today, we'll first have a keynote on 10 AI-powered language tools for translators and interpreters for 2025 with Laszlo Varga. This is going to be at 6 a.m. Los Angeles Pacific time, 11 a.m. Buenos Aires, and Berlin, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. We will also have, after this, we will have a panel on fostering well-being in remote work. We will have Sophie Solomon, Nicole Spite-James, Liam Martin, and Eva Klaudinkova. Without any more comments on this, thank you so much for your participation today, and we hope to see you tomorrow.